start recording and get started. All right, thank you and welcome everyone. Ray, do you want to go through, I guess, the two of us that are here on, right, three of us, I guess, and call roll?
I can call the roll.
Oh, thank you, Steve.
It will be easy task for me this time.
Yep,
Andrew Klein,
I'm here.
Tony Don,
Here.
and Corey Walker. And Corey sent an email. He won't be able to attend because he had a conflict with the schedule. So he wasn't able to reschedule, so he won't be here. And based on the fact that we have only 3 members because the other 2, Diane and Doug, were replaced, and there hasn't been any council meeting that would allow the council to appoint new members. So now we have Andrew and Tony for this meeting.
All right, Tony, you and I, we've got a lot of work to do just by ourselves. So members of the public, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, hi, this is Shamim Rashid Sumar, representing the National Ready Mix Concrete Association.
Thank you.
My name is Dave Kokot. I'm with the Spokane Fire Department.
Thanks.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. This is Tom Young with the Northwest Concrete Masonry Association.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Ken Brulette, Seattle Fire Department.
Thanks, Ken.
Micah Chappelle, SBCC council member representing code officials.
Thank you, Micah. All righty. Anyone else? All right, thank you. Let's move on to number 2, review and approve the agenda. Take a look at it, see if there are any other changes that you want to make, Tony. Otherwise, if you don't mind making a motion, I'll second it.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Can you pull up the minutes from March 18th? I guess it has been that long since our last meeting. Wow.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Tony. I will second that. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion. Next up, House Bill 2701 progress update. Stoyan, did you want to talk about that?
Tony will talk about it, but I will. I pushed a little bit for this item, and Tony, I apologize for that. But
Okay.
between the last time that we discussed 2701 and the council discussing 2701, it's been a long time. And the last time, the idea was we will have a message on the website. And this will give the TAC and the council staff and the council extra time to work on the language and implement the requirements from 2701. To my understanding, and I'm not a specialist in that, there are some issues with implementing the language. So I wanted Tony to provide some more information.
Yeah, no, that's great. So when this went through the TAG the first time, how this is written, the TAG was tasked with enforcing the fees and those types of things, but not rewording the language. We're not necessarily allowed to do so the way this was proposed and pushed through. And so there was just a lot of discussion on how this was going to look, and it ultimately what we're relying on is industry to work with the Washington State Association of Fire Marshals to come up with something that is more practical throughout the state of Washington. Dave Cocott at our Wednesday meeting gave an update that there was some discussion that the Washington State Association of Fire Marshals had with industry. And Dave, if you want to go over that, feel free. I know he's in attendance today, so.
Yep, I can I'm more than willing to do that. Basically, the general history of this was when the bill first got put in place, the fire marshals had some significant concerns, and a couple of things that were in the bill was that there had to be coordination with the State Building Code Council and had to be coordination with the State Fire Marshal's Office. Bill went through the whole process without even having that coordination even before the bill was developed. So fire marshals have got a consortium of industry, people who will be conducting the inspection, building owners, managers, a number of different groups, including the State Fire Marshal's Office. And we had our first meeting as a consortium this last week, the week before last. And we determined there's actually a couple things that we want to be able to work on. And number one, the primary goal of that group is to get the RCW revised so that it does move this to rulemaking rather than having this sit in the RCW. So we ended up learning that a couple of the gentlemen from one of the unions within the state helped put this bill together. And one of our concerns was the particular requirements for obtaining a certificate for doing the inspection. During that meeting we had a couple weeks ago, we were trying to get down a little bit further into the weeds with it, and basically are learning that is a union only available test. We've been assured that that's not the case, but all of our efforts to verify you could actually get this without being unionized have not been confirmed. So we're basically saying that we need to take a look at the whole RCW. So 700 to 740 have to be reviewed. Fire marshals have actually developed a modified version of that. And so this consortium has two groups. One of them is going to be reviewing the certification process, and the other one is going to be taking a look at the language itself that got put into the RCW as to modifying that. And we are currently working with legislative lobbyists to start getting some sponsors for this. And it's quite a concern. In general, what we have done from the Fire Marshal Association, as this is an RCW and not a WAC yet, it's basically unless you take action as a local jurisdiction, you have no specific requirements to enforce that. And we have informed our membership that as written and as published as RCW 1927, 700 to 740, it is not enforceable. It is not, it just doesn't work for everybody. And all the people associated just had no idea what was going on with it. So we're going to make an effort to get that taken care of with this next session.
Thank you, Dave.
All right. Well, thank you, Dave and Tony. So yeah, you've got a lot of work ahead, and we look forward to seeing progress. And anything else on this agenda item before we move forward? Anyone from the public have any comments? All right, let's move forward to review of the IBC proposals. Here's what I'd like to do. Tony, tell me if you disagree. I would like to only go over items that were noted that they wanted the BFP committee to look at further. Otherwise, we'll see if anyone from the public or if you or staff want to discuss anything in more detail. But otherwise, I'm comfortable just voting through the tag recommendations.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay.
Perfect.
So,
Stephanie, can you show the building code first? The one that you just replaced, the first document, IBC on the left on your screen. Great.
All right. Oh, go ahead, Stephanie. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, is this what you're looking for?
Yes, that's
Okay.
So let's see. I'm looking through. Do you mind scrolling down just a little bit more? Accepted, modified. So the loft issues, we did not have a tag recommendation for those, correct?
Those are different versions. So the one that I've got listed there that says 21 group 174 mod, that's the one that I think is the right one. It's the one we worked on in the tag group. I've got other versions there because John Suit sent us other versions, and frankly, it was a little bit confusing. So I wanted to make sure we had the different versions there so we could compare them if needed. And then there's another one in there that we can get to as well that has a second version as well.
Okay, so we'll go through those, I guess it sounds like.
Yeah, it's probably the most prudent thing just to make sure that the goal of what the tag wanted to do is upheld. And I don't want to make the decision on which one was the right one because there's a lot of language in there. So.
Okay, makes sense.
Mr. Chair, if I may, this is John Stew. I think ultimately we would like you to just consider version 4 there as a replacement for all the others.
Version 4, not what was put together as 74 mod.
Correct. Yeah, and I can explain now or later if you want to talk about it.
Let's open that up and then floor is yours, John.
Okay, thank you.
And just as a point of order, so this version 4 never was discussed by the TAC members. So we received it a couple of days ago.
Yeah, we talked about this in the tag. Yes, the first item got approved, and then we discovered that there was a conflict with an existing section in the code that the loft proposal created. So we worked on it a little bit, and we've come up with a version that deconflicts the code, and I can explain in a sec as this is going on. If you could scroll down, please, to where the code language starts. Thank you. So this part is the same as we had before. We have a new definition for loft that has not changed since the version you saw. There is also then all of 420 is pretty much the same. Let me make sure I'm saying that correctly. Yeah, if you could scroll down to 420.13.4. Okay, so this 420.13.4 is where things start changing. And let me explain a little bit. In the existing code, the 2018 Washington State Building Code, and for many, many years before, there's actually a section in 1011, which is about stairways. And it says that if you have a space that's 200 square feet or less, and it doesn't have the primary kitchen or bathroom for the unit, you can use a ladder or stair. And the whole section of 1011 doesn't apply, which is all about stair, rise and run, ladder requirements, alternating tread devices, and things like that. So, and I'd say that's been a very long-standing amendment in the Washington State codes. We had originally put in a lot of requirements for, what do you do for an alternating tread device? What do you do for ship's ladders and things like that for lofts? Obviously, that's more restrictive than what's currently in the code. So what we've done, if you could scroll back up to 420.13.4, if you looked at the older the version that got passed by the tag, there are a whole lot of requirements in 420.13.4 for stairways, ship's ladders, alternating tread devices, and ladders. those are all gone now. This, we're proposing to just replace the previous version of the our proposal with this version. And so we wouldn't be adding any language about those egress devices. The next change then is down in 10.11.1 and 10.11.17. So 10.11.17 is the original language that's in the 2018 code. It's been in there since the 1994 code. Seattle had it in the 1982 code, and or something similar to it. Actually, I think we allowed up to 400 square feet back then. So, but again, this has been in the code since 1994. We decided to do kind of a hybrid approach here. First of all, we moved it to an exception 2 in 10.11.1, because that's what it is. It's saying, if you read it, it says they're exempt from the requirements of 10.11. So it's really an exception that ought to be further up in the section. So that's where we moved it, the new exception 2 there. And the other thing that we've added is based on our discussions on the previous version and at the national level, we decided that we should really limit this to 10 feet, these, I will call them unregulated ladders and stairs. We don't want, at some point it's too high off the ground. 10 feet is, we talked about where there was limitations on our previous version for these alternating tread devices, ship's ladders, and things to lofts. So we've incorporated that in the second sentence of the exception 2 there. So such area shall not be located more than 10 feet above the finished floor of the space below. That's the gist of the change that we're proposing. Because they're we've exempted them up front, these ladders and things like that. We had originally had a bunch of changes in chapter 10, or sorry, section 10.11 to stairs and ship's ladders and ladders saying, yeah, you can use these for lofts. Those aren't necessary anymore because it's already covered by exception 2. So I think, let's see, make sure I've got everything. Yeah, those are the changes we made to the version since the tag has looked at it. When we talked about this in the tag, after it had been approved, I had asked, okay, we found this, how do we get this introduced? And the suggestion was to bring it directly to the BFP committee. Oh, and by the way, I have modified the reason statement down in section 5 to accommodate the changes we're making. So any questions on that?
Any questions from members of the public or Tony or staff? So John, thank you. I think that's a nice cleanup. One thing I will ask, would you be okay if we struck that second sentence in your exception number 2, such areas shall not be located more than 10 feet? I hate to add an additional requirement unless there's good reason to add that. We've got maximum building heights anyway, which usually, you're not gonna,
Yeah,
I'd rather leave that open to designers.
Okay, we kept it in for a couple of reasons. One was the national process. We got some pretty strong comments from one person, but pretty strong comments as we were working on our public comment to get it reintroduced at the national level, who felt that there ought to be some kind of limit, especially since you would likely have small children and things in these loft areas. And they felt it was essentially, they felt it would be safer if we had a limit. 10 feet is pretty generous, gets you pretty much whatever you need down below. And we haven't seen, personally, and as far as I know in Seattle, we haven't seen anything much higher than that. So, it doesn't usually get any higher because that's the limits of your ceiling heights anyway. It's got to fit within the ceiling heights. So I'm not too concerned about having in there. If the BFP wants to remove that, that's fine. I mean, I'm not gonna, yeah, it's been in the code for 17, whatever it is, 20 years, 27 years. So whatever. It's I can go either way with it. It was, again, something that we felt was needed.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's personally, I'd rather take it out, but any other comments? Yes.
Yeah, on the, so a version was moved to BFP, but the latest version was not. As the chair of the building tag, how do you feel about this being voted on as far as the version 4 today here?
So
and the reason I ask is just because I feel like the BFP committee, if you will, is it's, well, for lack of a better way to say this, and to be blunt, it's not much of a committee today. It's 2 of us. And so is it best to have this ran through the building tag, or would you be comfortable pushing it through today?
So based on the minimal number of changes that John described, I would be comfortable since everything else has been vetted. I'm comfortable with it. I'll ask staff if we can do that, or if it must go through, if this actual version must go through the tag, which I don't think it does.
It's up to you how you want to make it work. So we have time for another tag. It's scheduled for September 1st. If you want to move it back, refer it back for discussion, or you can move it forward and let the council deliberate in this section. So
Right. Thank
either
you.
option works.
So Tony, I feel it's done. Since you're the other voting member, I'll defer to you. If you feel strongly that it should go back through the tag, we'll do that, but I'm comfortable moving it forward.
Okay, and if you're comfortable with it, then I'm good also. And so at this point, will we be looking for a motion to send this one specifically, or are we gonna pile that in with some others?
Let me see if anyone else wants to speak on it. And then, yeah, I think we should take an individual motion on this, and then everything else, that doesn't require discussion, we'll do a motion for all of those together. So any more discussion on this from members of the public?
This is John McIntyre. So I guess just for clarification, am I removing that sentence that says such areas, et cetera, the 10 feet? Do you want me to remove that?
Well, if I make the motion, you will be doing that, but I don't, Tony, you make a motion.
I think if the 10 feet, I guess that's where I would probably feel a little uncomfortable with a motion today, is if there needs to be any changes to it. If so if I make a motion, it's going to be push it through as was submitted by John, for the version 4. And that's kind of what I was talking about as far as, is this work discussion at the level below?
Let's put it back to the tag then, because like I said, I just hate adding additional limitations if they're not justified. And as John pointed out, he rarely, if ever, sees the areas greater than 10 feet above the finished floor, but I like to leave that flexibility to the designers. So let's put that back to the tag. So if we can go back to the list, John, thank you again for A, doing all this work, and B, going through it with us. Next up, I believe the only other thing we need to discuss would be the tabled item which is EV charging infrastructure, but I'm not sure we'd be ready to make a motion on that anyway. Tony, did you want to discuss that, or should
Just
we continue to hold
again,
off?
from staff clarification, this was intended to stay and be discussed at the next TAC meeting on September 1st. So this is the only actually agenda item for the next meeting, because we're not done with the language yet. So I'm working on a proposal, and also we have one proposal that wasn't discussed. It was tabled at the TAC meeting. So it will be scheduled for the meeting on September 1st, the TAC meeting on September 1st.
Okay. Thank you, Stoyan. So then it looks like everything else came from the tags with a recommendation. So Tony, what I'd like to do after we hear from the public, if they want to open anything up for discussion, is to have a single motion to accept the tag recommendations on all those remaining proposals. Are you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, so let's open things up to members of the public. If you would like to discuss any of the proposals in more detail, if you're not happy with the tag recommendation.
So this is Micah. I'll jump in on one.
Sure, thank you.
I'd like to rediscuss or look at the all gender toilet and bathing facilities. It looks like this proposal 21-GP181. You all modified that at the tag level, and I had some questions on the tag. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend that tag meeting, and so I think the second time to bring it up was here at the BFP. And so if we could pull that up and share it on the screen.
And I think I think what we did was what you intended, but yeah, we'll go through it just to make sure the logic flows properly.
I do think in some sense you got to where we wanted to get to, but some of the language I am concerned with. You changed it to where rooms are designated as all gender, the total number of accessible toilet or bathing rooms shall be at least 50%, but not less than 2 rooms. My concern there is if you look at our original language, we talked about fixtures. The reason we talked about fixtures, accessible fixtures, is because say you put a urinal in your gender neutral or your all gender restroom, that's going to be in one of the 2 rooms. And I'm not sure that's the intent of what we were going for here. Or could be one of 2 rooms, because it's supposed to be in a compartment or room. I'm just not sure the room language that you have there actually works the way it's intended.
Okay, yeah, we were assuming that these were like the family style restrooms where it had all the fixtures together for just a single person, but you're saying you could have stalls, all together in an all gender restroom with, a common hand washing area. Is that correct?
You could, even in a single user facility, I think. And not that you would, but you could. And I guess that's kind of why we went with the accessible fixture language. And others on the call, even John could jump in and say maybe think otherwise. But that's my concern there, is that if we may need to specify. We were just trying to get that you're providing the same number of accessible fixtures, because that doesn't mean you're going to provide the same number of accessible rooms. If that makes any sense.
So Micah, did you want to take a stab at this language and we can discuss it at the next tag meeting? Would you be okay with that? But
I would be more than happy to.
Okay, and the big thing that I would like to see, of course, it's not necessary. We'll take a vote. It's a democracy here. I would like, previously it was worded in a way where it wasn't specific, such that the only time you would run into that issue was when there were 2 rooms only. So if we could make it more specific, like what we tried to do here, I think that would make the code a lot more clear. Does that make sense, what we were trying to do here?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
Beautiful.
Yep. Cool.
Okay. what I would propose to do, we take this off of the consent agenda for today of what we'll be voting on. Any more discussion on what we just talked about here or that path forward?
Yes, are you asking if we would, general members of the public to weigh in on any of the other items?
Yes, I wanted to finish this one up first, but
Okay,
yes,
sure.
that is what we'll be doing. And I think we're done, so you can probably talk in a minute, but let me just
Sure.
be sure. So any other comments on this proposal? All right, the floor is yours.
Yeah, hi, this is Shamim. I actually just wanted to open a couple of items that we did discuss before as part of the building TAC meetings, but I wanted the opportunity to at least have the fire TAC also hear some of our concerns regarding a few of the proposals. The first one is number 20. I don't know if that's on the list here. Sorry, 21.
So the NFPA 13R.
Yes, and I don't know if that I've actually seen the modification, but we did have some concerns because this is a reversal of a code provision that was introduced in the 2018 IBC code development cycle to address recent fire history and residential occupancies, particularly podium style developments. Yeah, and
Okay. Did you have a particular ask? Did you want this to be
Yes.
disapproved? Okay, go ahead.
yes, we would ask that this be reconsidered for disapproval. And the reason statement for the proposal did talk about, the cost differential between an NFPA 13 and 13R system. And I just wanted to share some information regarding what the intent of NFPA 13 versus 13R is, what the intent of the proposal was. And of course, that NFPA 13 requires protection for sprinkler protection in attics, closets, and bathrooms, and 13R does not have the same requirements for some of those concealed spaces. 13R also allows for a shorter duration of water supply and a lesser water discharge demand. And that generally it does result in smaller pipe sizes. However, the trigger for requiring 13 systems where the floor level of the highest story is greater than 30 feet above the lowest level of fire department vehicle access, it also aligns closely to where standpipe systems would be required in a building based on where travel distance by responding firefighters is long enough. So that cost increase for 13 systems versus 13R systems is really tempered by the fact that the pipe sizes would be required to comply with standpipe system, and those are fairly large and would easily accommodate a 13 system with little to no increase in pipe sizing. So that impact of requiring a 13 system versus a 13R system at the 30 feet is really reduced when you consider that. And again, I wanted to point out that this was, again, that original change that was made in 2018 to reduce from 60 to 30. That was really to address recent fire history in residential occupancies, particularly those podium style developments.
All right, thank you, Shamim. Any other comments from the public on this proposal?
Yeah, I guess I'd like to respond to a few of those things. I haven't had a chance to pull up the original reason statement for this, but my recollection, there was no discussion, and I'm sure Shamim will correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember there being a discussion about responding to recent fire history. The concern that was raised by the proponent was just the height of the buildings and that the podiums could get tall. What they did not take into account were sloping sites and how this would get measured. And I did talk, as I think I've mentioned here, and I'll let Ken speak for himself. Both of us, Ken Brulette from the Seattle Fire Department and I, testified against this as being unreasonable, and it should be left for the standard, NFPA standard, to address rather than trying to do this through the code. This severely penalizes certain sites that have downward slopes or things like that. So we felt it was unreasonable, and this, has got support from the fire tag as well, as I recall. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, John. And just if we can do a straw poll, I agree with you, John. Tony, did you want to state your position as of now so that folks know that, so they know how much to say, or based on which side they're on, if they need to speak?
Yes, thank you. Looking at our proposals, it was proposal 20 for us, so we'll see that once we jump to the fire one. And that went through the fire tag as well. And I believe John was there to kind of present it, and we had good conversation on that. And if my memory serves me correctly, we didn't have very many issues with the proposal, and we did move it forward to the BFP as well. So.
Okay, so our position is to move it forward, but that's our straw poll. But I'll open it back up to members of the public to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. This is Tom Young with the Northwest Concrete Masonry Association. I'd like to support Shamim's comments on this. If you look at the summary of the ICC vote, which was 11-3 actually to adopt these provisions that are being proposed to be overturned, they were talking about the primarily the recent fire history in Group R. So that was a major factor in their decision to approve the provisions that are in place now. And we've certainly seen some of these fires in Washington State as well, in both constructed and under construction Group R occupancies. So we feel that reducing the fire, the effectiveness of the sprinkler system with the 13R and the combination of looking at that history and the strong support at ICC, that our recommendation is to deny or disapprove this at the state level.
Thank you, Tom. Any additional comments?
This is Ken Brulette, Seattle Fire, just supporting John's comments, but I also want to talk against, I don't think it's fair to bring up buildings that are under construction, that fire history. This is set up for buildings that are completed construction, and nobody expects the fire sprinkler system to be working while the building is under construction still. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Any more comments?
Andrew, there are two raised hands there.
Oh, yes. Shamim, let's start with you. I will just go down in order based on the order shown in my participants list, and then Ray will get to you next.
Sure. I just wanted to add, in the current ICC code development cycle, there's no proposal to reverse this. There are some proposals to increase that floor level of the highest story by a few feet, like to 34 or 35 feet, but there is no proposal to completely reverse it. There was and I wanted to thank, somebody did, I believe, Tom did indicate that in the proposal statement during that 2018 code cycle, that the fire history was mentioned as the rationale. And some of those fires have been in buildings in construction, but under construction, but not all of them. So I just wanted to add those points for the record.
Thank you. Ray, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to, something we didn't do at the beginning of the meeting that maybe we should have with the, we may have some people that weren't familiar with the process. So I was just going to touch on the process of what we're doing here today is we're taking it before the committee to push to the council. And you still have a chance to speak to these proposals at the council level. And then if the council decides to push it into a rulemaking process, it gets filed as a CR 102. And then you still have 2 public hearings that you can speak on for public testimony on these proposals that you may be for or against. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that this wasn't the final step of the process of pushing this into the rulemaking process.
Thank you, Ray. Any questions for Ray about the process? All right, you must have been very clear. Thank you, Ray. Any other comments on this proposal? So, Dave, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just couldn't resist. I think that one of the things that we've done as the State Building Code Council regularly is try to avoid state amendments that we are overriding the national code. I just think that needs to be taken into consideration with this as well. I'm not going to say pro or against or pro or con, but I'm just going to say, we try to minimize our amendments.
All right. Thank you, Dave. All right. Any other comments? So Tony, back to you. I don't want to make any motions on this. I'd prefer to just leave it on what I'll refer to as the consent agenda for today. But you're welcome to make a motion if you'd like, and I'll consider it.
No, I'd like to leave it on consent as well.
Okay. So we're back to a new proposal. If anyone wants to bring that forward, not new, but one of the ones on the list to reconsider.
See, I had Tom Young again, Northwest Concrete Masonry Association. Mr. Chairman, number 80 was another one I wanted to at least provide a couple of comments on. Similar comments to what I provided at the tag level.
Sure.
This one has to do with firewall materials, primarily for type 3 and 4 buildings. Again, this is another proposal to overturn recent ICC action dealing with firewall materials, combustible and non-combustible. Obviously, firewalls are a major element of the fire safe building designs. The ICC voted to disapprove a very similar proposal to this one, stating there seems to be a lot of performance uncertainty and prefers to be careful with allowances for type 3 and 4 construction. So we support the ICC action, again, of denying a very similar proposal to this. And as I commented at the tag level, one of the arguments here for adoption of this and moving away from ICC language is the shrinkage criteria or shrinkage differential between non-combustible potential between non-combustible and combustible materials. I think that can be handled with proper detailing. There's always issues like that in building design with different materials. I don't think that should be a reason for reducing fire resistance of firewalls. So we'd like to see this not move forward.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments? I think what we had decided when we did move that forward is that these are tested assemblies. So whether we've got combustible materials inside or not, we're fine with that.
I guess I would say that certainly from my experience, they're working with the codes and buildings and things like that. Right now the current there's a current allowance for type 5 construction, which is wood frame and combustible. If it's okay in type 5, why wouldn't you allow it in the other type combustible types of construction? I think this is a very reasonable way to approach that. let's see, what else was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, and again, we are talking about materials rather than not the fire resistance rating. Fire resistance rating still stands. And so it'll still have to be dealt with to get the appropriate rating. So you'll end up, again, it's if you everything else around it is combustible. What's so special about these walls? I think a lot of it is a difference between what we're used to here on the West Coast versus what folks in other parts of the country are used to, based on discussions and things that I've had at the national level. A lot of the expectation for firewalls is you got a masonry or concrete wall there, and so that's what they're used to seeing, and so I think that's what they expect to see. Here on the West Coast, we've seen a lot of wood frame firewalls, and we think that's, again, this is a reasonable allowance.
Thank you, John.
This is Mike.
Shamim, okay, yeah, go ahead, Mike, and then Shamim next.
I was just going to add to what John said there and kind of say the same things a little bit, but what he pointed out was this is not a reduction in rating. The rating table stays. This is just in a different allowance of material. So shouldn't be a major issue. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Micah. Shamim, go ahead.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity to respond to some of those comments. This change is a fundamental difference to code philosophy. So right now, the IBC requires that firewalls not only have a fire resistance rating, but that they be of non-combustible materials. This code change number 80 is basically allowing combustible materials to serve as a firewall. So there's a difference between fire resistance and the fire performance characteristics of a firewall. A firewall has a specific function, which is not just to provide fire resistance, but it's in many instances it has a function to provide a separate building separation. It has performance characteristics for maintaining one side of the wall when another side of the building has collapsed. And these were discussed at the ICC code hearings. And this performance requirement was why the committee did not vote to approve and move forward this proposal. Right now, the code only requires non-combustible firewalls in type 5 construction because type 5 construction is typically not rated. So by nature of what type 5 construction is, this is clearly different from other types of construction.
Thank you, Shamim. Let's go to John next.
Sorry for jumping in too soon before. Yeah, just in response to that, again, well, type 5 construction, certainly in Seattle, is mostly 1 hour construction, so it is rated. And also, again, you're allowing combustibles in a lower type construction, type 5 being lower type of construction, types 3 and 4. And so if you're allowing in the lower one, there's not a good reason why not to allow it in the other types of combustible construction. And the higher types are going to be better, have higher fire resistance ratings. Yeah, anyway, I'll stop there.
Thank you, John. Shamim, you've still got your hand raised. Did you want to say anything else? Or
No, I apologize. I forgot to lower it.
No worries. Any other comments? So, all right, Tony, I am not feeling compelled to make any changes. Shamim mentioned this is a philosophical change. I understand that, and I disagree with that philosophy. So, did you want to make a motion to take this off of our consent agenda?
I would like to leave it on the consent.
Okay, thank you. So next code change, if anyone wants to bring one forward to discuss. All right, going once. Going twice. All right, did you want to make a motion, Tony, to move forward the tag recommendations?
Yes, so I'd like to make a motion to accept tag recommendations outside of log numbers 81 and 74, which are the two that will be going back to the tag.
Beautiful. I second that. Anything else you want to say in the discussion portion of this?
No, Andrew, thank you.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion passes. All right, so let's move on to IFC. So for this, I'd like to go through the same process as what we just did. And let's see, looking through percent. And can you scroll down a little bit more? So let's see, there's one tabled item. And which one was that? That was fire safety during construction and demo. Tony, is this going back to the tag?
Yes,
Was it tabled for that?
that one will stay tabled. We have a special work group meeting on Monday afternoon to go over a few things. Little bit of history on that one. In the, let's see if I get this right. In the 21, there was quite a few items added to chapter 33 at the national level. And then in the 24, what they did is they restructured all of 33 to put all of those additions in the 21 cycle into more sensible order, easier to navigate layout in chapter 33. And so the proposal is to get ahead of the curve and basically have that new layout adopted that is now that is going to be in the 24 in the 20 or in the 21 cycle. So I know that's kind of confusing, but ultimately there's more work to do on that, and that is ongoing, and that'll be our last one we go over unless something changes here today at the tag level.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Any others that you want to bring up for discussion before we open it up to the public to bring individual code changes forward?
No, I think that opening it up to the public is probably the best route to go at this time.
Okay, perfect. That is what we're doing now then. So either speak up or raise your hand. So Dave, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you. I did want to point out that in log number 35 regarding reference standards, that deals with the elevator code requirements and sprinkling of elevator pits. We've coordinated with the LNI, with the elevator division, to as long as we change the code, they're just enforcing what our code says, but they're now requiring sprinklers and elevator pits. Hydraulic oils are not what they were in the past. This is eventually will change in the future. So there is a proposal to change it for the 21 code, but I will also be requesting council to consider an emergency rule to incorporate it into the 2018.
All right. Thank you for that. And staff, did you have any comments on, well, Dave, you know the process, never mind. You were chair, so. Any other comments on this?
Could you repeat the proposal number for this, please?
It is, was it 35?
It is 35, yes.
Okay. Any comments, Micah, or you were just making notes?
Just making notes. If there's going to be a proposed emergency rule, I just want to prepare for that and review this proposal. And I couldn't figure out which one it was based on the log at the moment. So thank you.
Okay. All righty. Let's move on. Anyone else have any particular code changes that they want to individually consider? Going once. Going twice. All right, Tony, floor is yours to make a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to accept tag recommendations and push this to the council.
And I will second that. Anything else you want to say?
Nope.
All righty, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion passes. So let's go back to the agenda.
Tiffany, can you show the agenda?
It's buried under here somewhere. I'm trying to move it over.
That's okay, take your time.
Well, Stephanie is looking for it. I just want to clarify the procedure. So we have the standing committee meeting today. We have another TAC meeting on September 1st, and we have another standing committee BFP meeting on September 16th, and the council meeting is on September 17th. So it seems like the committee got most of the work done today, but for 16th, in regards to the building code, we'll have the Eevee proposal, which is a hot topic to discuss, and I don't know how many we have from the fire code, but there will be another meeting again on 16th.
Thank you, Stoyan. So we're here to other business. I'll start with Tony. You have any other business?
No, I do not.
Okay, staff. Stoyan, I think that's what you just finished with, but any additional other business?
The standing committee, there will be an agenda item for the council meeting on 17th. So the council can vote and appoint new members to the BFP and MVE committee. Also, the council will vote for a new chair for the International Residential Code Technical Advisory Group, because the chair was Diane, and Diane is no longer with the council.
Thank you for the update. All right, let's open it up to the public. Any other business?
Andrew, this is Ray. I just wanted to put it on the record and publicly thank the whole tag. I mean, you could see how well of a job they did, not having a lot of comment in the BFP meeting. And the tag worked very hard and very diligently to put that good code together. And Ken, especially with all the proposals that he did. But I just wanted to publicly thank the tag for their hard work that they did.
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, the tags have been phenomenal. And I'm sure Tony feels his tag was phenomenal too. I know my building code tag was. So thank you. Any other comments from staff or members of the public during our other business item? All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend, and we will see you at the next meeting.
Thank you, Andrew.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye. Yep.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.